Margaret Cole was no ordinary woman. As the mother of Adrian Cole, one of the youngest billionaires in the country, she had seen the best and worst of high society. Expensive smiles, fake friendships, and women who adored her son, but only for his wealth and status. Margaret had grown tired of the charade. She knew that none of these women loved her son for who he truly was. They only saw the billionaire, not the man. But Margaret had a plan. A plan that would strip away titles, wealth, and fake appearances. She wanted to meet the women in their rawest form, where no one was pretending to impress the billionaire's mother. So, she decided to become invisible in the very place her son built, his company. Like and hit the subscribe button as we dive into this shocking story. Early one morning, Margaret dressed herself in a plain cleaner's uniform. Gone were the elegant dresses, designer bags, and diamond necklaces. With a janitor's badge clipped to her chest and a cleaning trolley by her side, she stepped into Cole Innovations as just another face among the staff. No one recognized her. No one cared to look twice. From the moment she entered the building, the treatment she received was far from kind. People passed her like she was part of the furniture. Some whispered. Some sneered. To them, she was just a cleaner, insignificant, replaceable, beneath them. As the day went on, things got worse. On the executive floor, a group of glamorous female employees noticed her. They were the self-proclaimed queens of the office, women who thrived on gossip, power plays, and belittling those they saw as inferior. They took one look at Margaret and saw an easy target. In their twisted sense of fun, they intentionally spilled a drink across the polished marble floor right in front of her. The rich aroma of coffee spread through the air as the dark liquid seeped into the tiles. They smirked, watching her silently, waiting for her to respond. As Margaret calmly bent down to clean, they began mocking her loudly, calling her names, making fun of her age, her appearance, and even questioning her intelligence. To them, humiliating her was nothing but entertainment. But Margaret didn't flinch. She had seen far worse in life. She continued to clean, absorbing every insult, while observing every reaction. It wasn't the humiliation that surprised her, it was how no one else in the office cared to intervene. Everyone averted their gaze, pretending not to see, unwilling to get involved. Everyone, except one person. Her name was Sophie Daniels. A junior assistant with no flashy clothes, no designer bags, and no obsession with climbing the office social ladder. Sophie had been quietly watching the entire scene unfold. She could have stayed silent like the rest. But she didn't. Without hesitation, Sophie walked over and knelt beside Margaret, helping her clean the mess. She didn't say much, but her action spoke louder than words. The bullies were shocked. They turned their venom onto Sophie, hurling insults and warning her that helping a nobody cleaner would cost her dearly in the office. But Sophie didn't back down. She cleaned alongside Margaret, ignoring the taunts, keeping her head high and her conscience clear. Margaret was impressed. Not just by Sophie's kindness, but by her quiet strength. In a world where status dictated behavior, Sophie had chosen integrity over popularity. Margaret knew at that moment that Sophie was different. Later that evening, as Margaret sat in a small room she had arranged near the office, she thought deeply about the day's events. Sophie had passed a test she didn't even know she was taking. But Margaret wasn't done yet. The next phase of her plan involved someone else, her son. Sophie had shown kindness to a cleaner. But would she still be the same genuine person when faced with Adrian himself? Margaret wanted to see how Sophie would act around the man the world called a billionaire. Would she treat him differently? Would she change once the mask of poverty was lifted? Margaret knew exactly what she needed to do next. And Sophie Daniels had no idea her real test was about to begin. The next morning, Adrian Cole stood by the tall glass windows of his penthouse office, reading a detailed report. But it wasn't about market shares or business expansions. It was about a young woman named Sophie Daniels. His mother had given him the report herself, with a calm but firm request. Find out if her kindness is real, or if it's just convenient. Adrian didn't need convincing. He trusted his mother's instincts. But years of being a public figure had made him cautious. People wore masks, and he had seen enough to know that kindness was often for show. So, he devised his own silent test. He wouldn't approach Sophie as Adrian Cole, the billionaire CEO. He would approach her as a quiet, new recruit working in the IT department. That same day, Adrian dressed down. No tailored suits, no expensive watches. Just a plain shirt, jeans, and sneakers. He walked through his own company with no entourage, no assistant, and for once, no one recognizing him. People barely noticed him in the crowded corridors, except for a few who gave him passing glances. Sophie, however, noticed. She was in the break room, reorganizing some files, when she saw a man struggling to find a seat amidst the chaos. Several employees had spread their belongings across chairs, leaving no space for anyone else. Adrian didn't ask, he simply stood aside, not wanting to create a scene. But Sophie quietly got up and offered him her seat, with a polite smile. She didn't know who he was. She didn't ask. She just saw someone standing and acted. Adrian thanked her and observed her silently. Over the next few days, Adrian kept placing himself in situations where Sophie had choices. Choices that revealed character. He deliberately dropped a stack of files near her desk. Others noticed but ignored it. Sophie didn't. She knelt and helped him gather them without hesitation. During lunch breaks, Adrian noticed how Sophie always sat with the quieter employees, never seeking out the glamorous cliques. She shared her meals with the office janitors, laughed with the security staff, and treated everyone with the same level of respect. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. But not everyone was pleased with Sophie's attitude. The same women who had humiliated Margaret noticed how Sophie had become too comfortable. They didn't like that. In their eyes, Sophie was stepping out of her place. They began whispering rumors, spreading lies that Sophie was trying to get close to someone important. One afternoon, they set her up. They accused her of tampering with an important project file. It was a fabricated claim, but their voices were loud and convincing. Sophie was summoned to the HR office for an inquiry. Adrian watched everything unfold. He didn't interfere. Not yet. He wanted to see how far Sophie's resilience could go. During the HR interrogation, Sophie remained calm. She denied the accusations but did not lash out or cry for sympathy. She simply presented her truth, standing firm even when it was clear no one was on her side. Adrian admired her composure. Under pressure, she didn't lose herself. But Margaret had seen enough. Later that evening, she walked into Adrian's office. There was no need for further testing. The girl had passed every trial thrown at her, without knowing she was being watched from every corner. It was time to end the game. The next morning, an announcement was sent to all staff. A mandatory meeting on the executive floor. No one knew why. Rumors flew like wildfire. But nothing prepared them for what happened next. Margaret Cole entered the grand boardroom, but this time, not in a cleaner's uniform. She was dressed in her full elegance. The same faces that mocked her days ago turned pale. Eyes widened. Mouths fell open. But the biggest shock was yet to come. Adrian walked in right after, no longer in casual clothes, but in his full CEO presence. The man Sophie had been assisting unknowingly was none other than the owner of the company. The room went silent. And Sophie? Sophie stood frozen, her heart pounding, realizing that everything she had done was seen by the very people who mattered most. Her life was about to change. The atmosphere in the grand boardroom was suffocating. Executives, managers, interns, everyone stood in stiff silence. The same people who had laughed behind Margaret's back were now struggling to breathe as the truth sank in. The cleaner they had insulted and humiliated was none other than Margaret Cole, the mother of the company's CEO. Adrian Cole stepped forward, his expression calm but razor-sharp. He didn't need to raise his voice. Like and subscribe for part 2, because what happens next will shock you, and comment part 2 in the comments.